Here we have the artist Yayoi Kusama's piece known as Narcissus Garden. This was an original installation and performance piece that happened in 1966, and it's made out of mirrored balls. And Yayoi Kusama is Japanese. She pulled inspiration from and helped others to inspire pop, minimalism, and also surrealism. And in her early era of art was very much part of performance. Performances mirrored an age where vision was constantly changing and new ways of doing things were constantly sought. She's known for staging a nude event at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City where a black man laid atop a spread-eagled white woman. And it was named, "This is an act to destroy power in the name of art," she explained. A little bit about her. She left Japan in 1957 and settled in New York City. Her work appealed to New York's turbulent political and social environment. Kusama staged multiple fully nude events across the city to protest the war in Vietnam, also to protest economic disparity and the excesses of Wall Street, the hierarchy and gender inequality in museums. Kusama describes herself as an obsessive artist. Her work reveals a fixation with repetition, pattern, and accumulation. Much of Kusama's work explores long-standing interest of being in an altered perception or like an optical illusion. During this time, her visions would match the transcendental aspiration of the psychedelic drugs and mind-altering spiritual movements of the hippie culture. Since the 1960s, Kusama has been making immersive environments that engage us in our own perception, physicality, and scale. The first Narcissus Garden was made in 1966 for the Venice Biennial. And it's based on, this piece in particular is based on the Greek myth about Narcissus. Narcissus was a Greek hunter he was a hunter in Greek mythology. He was the son of the river god Cephissus and the nymph Lyrope. He was a very beautiful young man, and many people fell in love with him. However, he only showed them disdain and contempt. One day when he was hunting in the woods, the Oread nymph Echo spotted him and immediately fell for him. When Narcissus sensed that someone was following him, Echo eventually revealed herself and tried to hug him. However, he pushed her off and told her not to disturb him. Echo, in despair, roamed around the woods for the rest of her life and wilted away until all that remained was an echo sound. Nemesis, the goddess of retribution and revenge, learned what had happened and decided to punish Narcissus for his behavior. She led him to a pool. There the man saw his reflection in the water and fell in love with it, although he didn't realize in the beginning that it was just a reflection. When he understood it, he fell in despair that his love could not materialize, and he committed suicide. So that's the story of Narcissus, and basically what this becomes is seeing your reflection in a mirrored ball is, you getting immersed in the artwork. So the work comprised of hundreds of mirrored sphered balls that was outdoors in what she called a kinetic carpet. And as soon as the piece was installed, and this wasn't part of the deal, but as soon as the pieces were installed, she put up a sign. You could see the people right here that said, "Your narcissism for sale." And then she actually sold the mirrored balls to the people for just $2. Finally, the biennial organizers put a stop to that because that wasn't part of the deal. But that monetary exchange between Kusama and her customers underscored the economic system embedded in art production, exhibition, and circulation. So this is considered one of her most famous works. Narcissus Garden was as much about the promotion of the artist through the media as it was an opportunity to offer a critique on the mechanization and commodification of the art market. It functioned as a promotion of herself and a protest against the commercialization of art. Originally intended to be for the media as an interactive performance between the artist and the viewer, the objects are now regarded as valuable commodities for display. Since 1966, there's been various versions of Narcissus Gardens that have been presented in different venues worldwide. It had been in Germany in 2003. It had been in Whitney Biennial Park in New York, 2004, and now it is currently in Paris, right here in the financial district. This is the Eiffel Tower there, and notice that the original exhibit wasn't in water, but this exhibit is, which again enhances that idea of reflection and being in love with your own reflection. Let's see. To further accentuate the effect of gazing as one multiple selves, many installations now take place on the water because of the Greek mythology that I told you about. So when an audience goes in and experiences today, they gaze into it, the viewer can see his or her own reflection staring back, forcing like a confrontation with one's vanity and ego, and sometimes they're seduced by his or her own reflective images on the convex surfaces. Another thing that happens now is that viewers are snapping photographs with smartphones or taking selfies and then instantly uploading them to social media for the rest of the world to see, which is somewhat narcissistic, which I do too. Everybody does it, but it's and then they'll hashtag it Narcissus Garden, or they definitely use it as a means of social promotion that you got to see this object. And I'm just as guilty of it as anybody else. She actually is like trying to capture and disseminate the moments of one's own images when one's own image coalesces onto a privileged object in a privileged institution, and that seems to motivate an obsession with the self. She moved back to Japan in the early 70s. She became emotionally stable, probably due to the amount of drugs she was doing, and ran out of money. She actually had mental issues even before she moved to New York, where she often would see or hallucinate, see things that weren't there. And so today she actually lives in a mental institution in Japan. She's still working. She has a studio across the street. She's in her 80s, and she works every day from 9 to 6. And she's still producing art. And I follow her on Instagram. And usually, obviously most of the stuff is work she's already produced. But one of the things she's definitely known for is the infinity rooms. And these are just, I think this is my favorite art piece at the Broad. There's a door right here, and where the outside is, and then so you walk in the door and you stand on this platform, and then right here was water, and it's like very shallow, of course. It's like you could step maybe ankle deep in it, but the purpose of the water is to reflect all the lights, and the lights when you're in the infinity room, they flash at different times, and almost every single picture that you have of this that you see on social media is someone with their phone taking a picture of it and uploading it to their social media account, including myself. I have one of those as well. So this is it's still there. It was supposed to be only at the Broad for a limited time, but it has been there since the Broad had been opened like at least 5 years ago. 2 years ago, Kusama had a whole exhibition at the Broad, and it was really cool to see her other pieces that I really like. I wanted to show you guys some of the things she's somewhat obsessed with. I don't know if you guys can tell, but she is obsessed with polka dots. The color red is a theme very dominant in her work. She has a red wig that she wears. Another thing she is obsessed with is pumpkins. This one is part of a piece called like My Eternal Love and Devotion for Pumpkins. And there was a room that had a bunch of these pumpkins with lights on it. This is actually a Louis Vuitton store, like in New York City, where they made the whole room designed by Kusama. So you've got all of these like this is negative polka dots, right, that comes through here. And there's, if you were to Google all the different Kusama purses that have different Kusama designs on it from Louis Vuitton, it really is just amazing if you're into that type of thing. And then as part of the ad campaign, she dressed George Clooney in polka dots, and so she's very much still relevant. This one is my favorite infinity room. She has up to several different infinity rooms, and this was like the one she didn't want anyone taking pictures at. So we weren't allowed to bring phones into this one. So this is just one that people could she wanted you just to experience it. And it's just a couple, like maybe 45 seconds that you stand in here, and then they allow the next group of people to come in. So anyway, she's still very relevant today, but her piece in Paris that is currently there of Narcissus Garden, if you guys get to the financial district in Paris, which I've been to Paris like 5 times and I've never made it to the financial district, so I haven't seen it in person, unfortunately. But when I do, I will take a selfie and post it on my social media. Okay, so there's Kusama, and as I said, she's on Instagram, so follow her.